welcome back to the podcast of Wednesday's Child. As you know, we do like to bring you a fabulous guest every time we chat here on the podcast, and today is absolutely no exception. I am delighted to invite to this podcast episode the wonderful Sally Baker. She is a therapist of many decades of experience, and I hope that doesn't make you frown, Sally, so apologies for that. But she's got huge amounts of expertise and experience in the whole gambit when it comes to eating disorders. So we're talking right the way from morbidly obese through to a world of restriction to orthorexia, you name it, she's seen it, and my goodness, does she have a view about it. So you don't need to hear any more from me. You're going to hear from Sally. She's going to introduce how she works, and I'm going to promise you there's going to be some homework out of this. Sally likes to think in the practical. Sally likes to remind us that this isn't about food, this is about thinking, and there's a way through this. So turn up the volume, get your earphones in, listen in, and take everything you can from this episode. So here we go. Hi, Sally. How are you?
Very well, thank you. That was a great introduction. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Well, I don't know how you introduce someone like you, Sally. You've got such an incredible amount of experience. Do you want to just give us a little bit of background as to how you came into this space?
Yes, so I published my first book, Hammersmith Books published my first book on eating disorders back in 2014, which is called 7 Simple Steps to Stop Emotional Eating. The focus then was very much on emotional eating versus the new term, which seems to be disordered eating. And that book was published by Hammersmith Books. Then I went on to write another book with a co-author called How to Think and Feel Differently About Food. Hammersmith Books also published that. And more recently, I've had my third book published by them, which is called The Getting of Resilience from the Inside Out. So lots of books about how to obtain techniques, strategies, skills that you may not have had when you were younger, growing up, and that you can develop as an adult. So, and that can, change how you think and feel about yourself and serve you better. Yeah.
So tell me what informs your approach to therapy when it comes to working with people with disordered eating relationships?
Okay, yeah, good question. I don't do past lives, I don't do crystals, I don't do angels. So as far as I'm concerned, everyone is born clear. I mean, I know there is some genetic stuff and I don't take that into account. But the whole idea is that we come up with strategies to help us cope with things, challenging things that have happened in our lives. These strategies often don't serve us. Around food, with the restriction, as you said, orthorexia through to binging, purging, all the rest of every color and hue of disordered eating is something that people have come up with as often a life-saving strategy. They are uncomfortable strategies. They are strategies that don't serve anyone and don't do us any good, but they're the best we could come up with at the time. So my work is about acknowledging you were born clear, we can go back to clear. We can go back to a place where you didn't have these strategies in place. We can resolve the trauma. We can resolve it and release the trauma. It isn't about living with trauma. It's about resolving and releasing it and being free of it. So that's the end goal of the therapeutic journey, is that you're up and free and thriving. It isn't about surviving, it's about thriving.
So fascinating to hear, and I think incredibly refreshing and welcome for the many people that will listen to this, because I know it's very easy for people to start to believe the narrative that you are never fully free of disordered eating, stroke and eating disorder, that you live with it, that you manage it. So let me not put words in your mouth, but what you're saying is absolutely not. You do not need to have that controlling factor and diminishing factor in your world forevermore. You can gain freedom.
You can definitely gain freedom. Also, what comes out through the work is that we look at how one thinks. So thoughts are just a little bit of something, just a little bit of something. They're not made in concrete, they're not carved in stone. They're just thoughts that come in, and when we start to explore thinking and interrupting unhelpful thinking, we can see how people's thinking has kept them stuck and trapped. And as soon as we begin to intervene with those thoughts, interrupt them, then liberation follows. So I've got an aid. I've got a couple of visual aids for us. The first is a music box.
Oh, a music box. Okay.
So lots of people will recognize that their thinking follows a pattern, and it always ends up the same way. It can end up in binging, or it can end up in restriction, or it can end up in more restriction, greater and greater levels of orthorexia, or it can every color and hue. But it starts with a thought. And a thought, when it's given attention, think of it like a seed in the palm of your hand. The more attention you pay a thought, then the seed grows and grows into a vine, as if you were giving it sunlight and rainwater. And the vine, the thought, becomes really overwhelming. So what happens when people think around disordered eating, they started to wind themselves up. And it can only end one way. Everyone will have their own different way, but it can only end one way. So just like the music box gets wound up, I think she's starting already. She gets wound up. It can only end one way. She only plays one tune, and she only does one dance. And here it is. So if she continues to focus on that thought, she'll do her one dance. And her one dance can be really destructive, really painful, really uncomfortable. And she'll just play one tune. And it's hard to turn off, but it can be done.
One of the greatest traumas of dealing with your eating disorder is that sense that it's that kind of, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And that can become so distressing because we know we're doing it. Our, friends, family know that we're doing it. And yet we put ourselves through that same cycle of distress. But what you're saying in the therapeutic approach that you take is she doesn't need to do that same dance.
She doesn't need to do the same dance. She doesn't need to play the same tune because it doesn't serve her. It's never served her, and it's time for it to stop. So this is about interrupting your thinking. And this comes on to the second visual aid. This large glass.
Sally now has a huge goldfish bowl in her hands full of beautiful coloured marbles.
Yes, it's a little bit dusty, my goldfish bowl, but there it is. This represents your mind. And it's actually got two lots of colours in it, gold marbles and blue marbles. So when you meet someone on the street and they say to you, "So, hi, Debbie, how are you doing?" You don't go all the way back to your childhood, Debbie. You don't go back to, I don't know, 1999 or 2005. You go back, you take a snapshot in a split second of the last 2 weeks. And the last 2 weeks, how you introduce and say, "Oh, I'm fine, thank you," or "You know what, I've had a bit of a tough time." You are looking at the thoughts you've had over the previous fortnight. And I want you to imagine that every time you've had a life-affirming thought where you've said something kind to yourself, something generous to yourself, you've dropped in a gold marble. And every time you've had a self-deprecating thought, a judgmental thought, something harsh and cruel that you said to yourself, you drop in a blue marble. And we're not doing mathematics. So you have to imagine that in this goldfish bowl that represents your mind, there are 100 marbles. And we're taking a snapshot of your thinking. So honestly, I work with people regularly that 98% of the marbles are blue, representing harsh, judgmental thoughts, versus 2 gold, kind, generous thoughts about themselves. It's not unusual for me to meet people and work with people who have hardly any gold marbles in their mind, any kind thoughts, any self-compassion towards themselves. So, the first step is to bring awareness. The first step is to realize, wow, my thinking is so negative. My thinking is so catastrophic. It doesn't take much to tip me into 100% blue. And when the boundaries are that extreme, you don't have a lot of spare room. So bringing awareness to how we think about ourselves and talk about ourselves is the beginning to intervene with it. Awareness on its own isn't enough. I say the same about awareness days. We need interventions. So once you've worked out that blue marbles far exceed gold marbles in your thinking, I want people then to take the next step. What's the voice? Whose voice is it in your head that gives a running dialogue to everything you say and everything you do? Does a post-mortem of the evening before and what every meal you've had, dissects it, plans the next meal you had or you're not allowed to have, and all of that stuff. Whose voice is it? Is it your voice or is it someone else's voice? And you might be surprised to hear that it could actually be someone else's voice. It's not even your voice, not even your stuff. Because what I want you to do is begin to separate yourself from this voice, this negative voice that has had free range over your mind, free range, and not been brought to book, not been tested, not it's just in there like a toxic drip drip.
Yeah.
So when you know that you've got this toxic drip drip, the next thing is to whose voice is it? And then what is it saying? Because although it might account to 99 marbles, there'll be just a few themes, maybe 5 or 6 themes. Write them down. Just tap them into your phone or write them on a piece of paper. It'll be things like, I don't deserve to eat, or I don't deserve to be healthy, or I don't deserve to flourish. It'll be those kind of, it'll be around deserving, and it'll be around self-blame and very much judgmental practices. And the next stage is the fun stage. It takes 21 days to embed a change. Psychologists have worked this out. So every time you start clocking that, that another of those horrible negative thoughts that I've now identified has come in, I want you to interrupt it. And you can interrupt it if you're on your own and you've got some privacy. You can say out loud the game show noise, like, the wrong answer in the game show, because that is a BS thought. You've just had a BS thought that doesn't serve you. And I don't want it to have free range of your subconscious mind. I want you to clock it, go, oh, yeah, that's a really harsh thought. It's a BS thought.
Identify with that eating disorder and say, I hear you, I'm not playing that nonsense. I know what you're doing. It's almost like you say, have the game with it, play back to it, don't be the victim.
Absolutely. And I have whole families who do it to each other. It might not be around eating disorders, but it could be around compulsive shopping, or it could be around catastrophic thinking. Whatever the thing is that people are doing that doesn't serve them, it'll show up in the marbles, and then you'll be able to track where it originated from, hopefully. But it doesn't really matter, because the major thing is intervene, interrupt it, change it. Yeah.
Wow, so fascinating. So tell me where you think we're at in, given just let's look very briefly at what you're seeing come through your door. I know that, this year we've seen the whole kind of explosion of injectables and things like that. Where do you think we are in the world of disordered eating disorders? Is it getting worse? Are we way worse than we were 10 years ago? Is it likely to get much worse? What do you think is happening as far as you can see?
It doesn't look very good out there, and we're having the injectables are another layer of sort of shame on people who are carrying too much weight now, or feel that they're carrying too much weight, because they say, well, why don't everyone just get the injectables and everyone can just be slim? But what is really showing up in my consulting room is that lots of my clients are using injectables to lose weight. Across some of them are only, they will tell you, I only want to lose 4 pounds, but there are ways around getting all of the injectables. And what they're doing is they are depressed. They're very happy that they've lost the weight that they wanted to lose. But people who have been relying on food to distract them, to absorb them, to fill up their conscious mind, suddenly don't have that anymore, because the drugs work very effectively. They do work very effectively to break the hold that food has on us. And without that prop, and without being able to swallow down uncomfortable feelings with food or thoughts around food, people are left ruminating with really old stuff that's been buried under restriction or under excessive food consumption for often decades at a time.
Gosh, yeah. Wow. I guess it really does heighten the thought that, therapy really has its place, doesn't it? And it doesn't matter how far in the past you think your stuff or your fears may exist, but it's not true, though, is it, that everybody is comfortable about making that decision of embarking on therapy? I speak to people a lot of the time who will say, oh, I've come to Wednesday's Child because I want some befriending, but frankly, I'm a little bit scared about actually diving into therapy. Oh, and I don't want someone digging up my past. But
Sure.
Be that way, does it, Sally? And I think sometimes there's such a preconception about what therapy needs to look like. And I think what I find personally so uniquely wonderful about your approach is you really meet the person where they're at.
Absolutely. When people make the decision to reach out, that's a really courageous step.
Yeah.
And I often hear that therapists don't get back to clients or prospective clients for weeks on end. And but I think if someone has made that really courageous step to say, okay, I want to make contact, and it's at that point it's just an exploration, and it's a mutual exploration, because some people really do need a multidisciplinary team, or some
Yeah.
people really do need an emergency kind of backup. And as a single counselor therapist, I can't provide that. So, it's a mutual exploration. I'm seeing whether I can be a good fit for them, and they're seeing whether they can be a good fit for me. And then if we mutually believe we can do constructive work together, then we will. But that's that. I want to honor. I do try and honor people where they are, and it is a scary prospect. But
Mm.
also, I work content free, so often there's old trauma. Really, old trauma going back. The youngest trauma that I've worked with, the child was 3,
Oh,
and that was disclosed, and the woman that disclosed that was 68. She carried that with her whole life, which for me it's just tragic.
heartbreaking.
Tragic.
Really heartbreaking.
Really, really heartbreaking. And that is an unusual story, really. So with working content free, the client already knows what happened to them, unless they need someone to bear witness to them and say, actually, I need to be able to tell someone completely what happened to me. Then it's not necessary for them to retell their tale. They already know their narrative. They already know what happened to them, and we can work in metaphors. So they can call it the Wednesday thing, or they can call it the grandfather, or the blue dress, or whatever metaphor works for them.
Yeah, they identify it in a way that doesn't need to sort of dredge it up with such kind of massive labels attached to it, but they can just give it an identity that works for them.
Yeah, and all the feelings are still there, but they don't have to relive it blow by blow, moment by moment. I also see a lot of clients who come to me, and the first thing they do when they sit down is say, "You know what? I failed at EMDR. I got EMDR, which is a really popular NHS trauma PTSD therapeutic approach of around either 8 to 10 sessions of EMDR. But the problem with EMDR is that you need to forensically relive what happened to you, and you
Oh,
do that over an extended period of time. So some people find that too triggering, too distressing, and they can't do it, and they give up. You might give up for another decade, which is, I think, the tragedy there.
yeah. Gosh.
Yeah,
Well, it's getting a short insight into your work, Kelly, and into kind of how you like to work with your patients and also what you're seeing now. There's no doubt we're going to have you back on this podcast to give some more insight and hopefully some more exercises for people to take away to do as homework. I'm going to drop in our show notes all about Sally's work and some of the. I'll outline the marble exercise and the music box just in case you want to try that one at home, and I'll also list Sally's books and how you can get hold of Sally if you think you'd like to do some one-to-one work with her. But I can absolutely assure you she's a very busy lady, so don't waste any time if you're inclined to get working with Sally. Sally, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for spending a time on the podcast with us today.
very welcome, Debbie. Anytime, anytime.
You've been listening to the podcast of Wednesday's Child. We'll be back for another episode very soon.